moves imminent for the Dallas Mavericks, and we are going to talk about 3 moves that they have to make before the start of the 25-26 NBA season right here on today's show. Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Jeffrey Cooperstein here with you guys. Hope everyone is enjoying their week so far. Before we get started with today's show, please go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter at Jeff_Coop27. I'm always bringing you the latest Mavericks news before you find it right here on the channel. My goal today is to get 10 followers on today's show, and I'll give you a shout out if you give me a follow over there once again at Jeff_Coop27. So we'll start with number 1, which could be the potential extension coming from P.J. Washington, who is eligible to sign an extension on August 29th. And by all accounts, it seems like the Mavericks and Washington are going to come to some sort of agreement. Now, his max is 4 years and $89 million. However, I don't think the Mavericks and PJ are both aiming for that max deal. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And according to Tim McMahon of ESPN, he kind of agrees with that, where he says, I think it's going to be at a number that he will probably be very tradable on. Now, if you sign PJ to a 4-year, $89 million deal, is that super tradable? Yes and no. I think it's going to be somewhere in the 4 for 72 range, which is right at around $18 million a season. I think you'll find it between that 18 and 20 million per year range. Look, I don't have enough good things to say about PJ Washington and his time with the Dallas Mavericks in over 86 games played. He's been a spiritual leader on this team, and he has been an Energizer Bunny on this squad, averaging 13.7 points and 7 rebounds, has shot pretty well from 3 as well, is better than he did in Charlotte, and they don't make the NBA Finals in 2024 without PJ, and last year, if they don't have his presence out there, they don't make the NBA play-in either, and I know he did miss 25 games with injury, but he really is a key part to this team, and there were, trade rumors throughout the offseason about whether the Mavericks would try to trade Daniel Gafford or PJ Washington to try to go get a starting caliber player here on this roster. Well, they extended Daniel Gafford there in the early part of the 2025 NBA offseason. And now when Washington becomes eligible here in just a couple of weeks, I expect the Mavericks and Washington to get this deal done. I think both of them want to get a deal done, so I don't think it will be a contentious negotiation by any means. If it does end up becoming some sort of a contentious negotiation, then perhaps, the Mavericks and PJ could wait it out into the season and a trade could materialize right around the trade deadline. The Mavericks have built this team on their wing depth. They drafted Cooper Flagg number 1 overall. You have Najee Marshall on there who's going into the second year of his contract. Caleb Martin, who they traded for at the 2025 NBA trade deadline. Former first-round pick Olivier-Maxence Prosper heading into year 3 in the league. So this team really has an abundance of wing options, but PJ is at or near the top of that alongside Cooper Flagg. I think you're going to end up seeing Washington in the starting lineup, probably playing the 3 with Flagg at the 2 alongside Davis and either Lively or Gafford at the center spot. And look, I think Washington has endeared himself to Mavericks fans. He became a fan favorite pretty instantly with his stand-on business during the magical run to the finals. He's a Frisco Wakeland graduate, so he grew up in the area, has a connection to this team, and I believe that the Mavericks would like to keep PJ long-term. I think PJ wants to stay in Dallas long-term. He even said it after spending the first part of his career in Charlotte. He was blessed to come to an organization like Dallas that has a lot of stability, has a winning culture, and has the ability to be at the top of the Western Conference every single season. So I do think that this deal ends up getting done, and I think it's important that the Mavericks make this move before the start of the season. Do you want the Mavericks to extend PJ Washington? That is going to be our poll question here on today's show. If you do, type E for extend. If you do not, type W for wait. Let me know down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. Another move that the Mavericks must make before the start of the season is they have to make at least one trade. Why is that? Pretty simple. The Mavericks have 16 players on their roster, and you're only allowed 15 once you go into the start of the season. Look, I think this roster is very deep and very loaded. For purposes of this show, I did take Jaden Hardy out of here, so you only see 15 names, but consider Hardy as part of this roster as well. So here are your 15 guaranteed contracts right here, and including your two-way guys at Ryan Nembhard and Miles Kelly. So the Mavs roster is full. Now, you're allowed to go into training camp with, I believe, up to 21 players on your roster. The Mavericks, as it stands, currently have 16 plus the two-ways. So the roster is full, which means the Mavericks simply have to make a move. The fact that you can only have 15 guaranteed contracts on the roster does kind of give Nico Harrison a bit of a headache as we head into late August and September and October when the Mavericks really start kicking things back into gear. These are the four guys who I think have the most possibility of being traded by the Mavericks before the start of the season. Caleb Martin, who they acquired last season for Quentin Grimes and a second-round pick. I like Martin the player, and Nico Harrison seems to really like Martin, but at the end of the day, I don't know where the minutes come from for Caleb. Their injuries will happen. Of course, there will be back-to-back and nights where guys are taking rests where they're going to have to find minutes, and I think Martin could play a role there, but he's only going to be a bit part player for this team. Jaden Hardy, in my opinion, his time with the Mavericks has kind of come and gone. I think he's used up all of his chances to try to make himself a part of this rotation. You know he can give you buckets in a short manner if you need that, but that's literally all he can do is score. He's not going to defend. He's not going to play make. He's not a super efficient catch and shoot guy, which the Mavericks are going to need as well, given the construction of this offense going forward. So I don't think it's Jaden Hardy. And the same goes kind of for Omax, who is going into his third season. And to be fair to Omax, they really haven't had the chance for him to develop correctly because this team has been in a win-now situation since the second he stepped in Dallas after the Mavericks, traded for him in the first round of the 2023 NBA draft. I always had very high hopes for Omax, and I think it could work out for him with another team. I just don't see it happening with this squad. And then Dwight Powell, who's going into the final year of his $4 million deal, the Mavericks aren't going to trade Dwight Powell. He's just going to sit and rot on the bench. He's not going to play unless it's in case of emergency, and the Mavericks trust him to play 10 to 15 minutes a night if they need to. In reality, I'm just going to narrow it down here to Jaden Hardy and Olivier-Maxence Prosper. I don't think they're going to trade Caleb Martin. I don't think they'll trade Dwight Powell. I've mentioned Max Christie as a potential trade candidate before. I don't think they would want to trade him either. So it'll be one of those two guys who get moved on. Maybe the Mavericks even have to attach an asset like a late second-round pick or something like that in order to get rid of one of the two. But that's where I see things standing. Once we start this season, I think one of Omax or Hardy will not be on this roster. We'll get to the final move the Mavericks have to make here in just a moment. But before we do that, we have a really cool opportunity for you guys. When you go to chatsports.com/Kyrie, you can get yourself a Kyrie Irving jersey today. Kyrie is rehabbing from his torn ACL, but he is still the leader of this Mavs squad. And Kyrie, a future Hall of Famer playing for the Mavs. If you don't have a Kyrie Irving jersey, what are you doing? Head to chatsports.com/Kyrie right now. That link will be in the comments and description of today's show. And when you use that link, we get a part of the proceeds as well. So you're supporting the channel while going and getting yourself a dope Kyrie Irving jersey. All sizes and colors are still available. One more time, it's chatsports.com/Kyrie. I touched on this briefly last show, but the Mavericks still do need to sign a final two-way guy. They have Ryan Nembhard, the rookie out of Gonzaga, and Miles Kelly, the rookie out of Auburn, as their two guys on the two-way contracts right now. So you are allowed 3 two-way contracts. The Mavericks will not be signing Kai Jones to a two-way deal because he is ineligible and he went and worked out for the Miami Heat. So it sounds like he's potentially heading to Miami or even over to Europe. And Kessler Edwards, who was also on a two-way deal with the Mavericks last year, just recently signed with the Denver Nuggets, but he's also ineligible as well. So if you're wondering what happened to those two guys on the Mavs roster, they are no longer here in Dallas. Here are the 5 two-way candidates that I see, but that the Mavericks could potentially be signing to that final spot before the season begins. Jamarion Sharp, Maxwell Lewis, Jordan Hall, Moussa Cisse, and Matthew Cleveland. But I really think it's a two-way battle between Jamarion Sharp and Moussa Cisse, the two big men. All of these guys played for the Mavericks here in the 2025 NBA Summer League out in Las Vegas. But I think if the Mavericks are really looking for someone to contribute to this team, I'm thinking they're going to want a big guy because the injury-prone guys that the Mavericks have in their big man rotation in Anthony Davis and Derek Lively. Daniel Gafford, while not super injury-prone, does miss a decent chunk of time. And if you have that, if all of those guys are getting hurt and in and out of the lineup, you really want depth at that big man spot. So I think it'll be between those two guys. It also could be someone else out there that we just haven't even mentioned yet. Maybe Nico Harrison and the Mavericks scouting department have their eye on someone that we have no idea even exists yet. That's entirely possible. Or maybe they go into training camp and they have a true battle, a true competition to see who ends up getting that final spot. So we'll see what happens here in the coming days and weeks, but I do think that the Dallas Mavericks are going to sign someone here to the two-way spot before the start of the season. They could leave it open if they wanted to, but what's the fun in that? So hopefully they sign someone here and they fill out that roster before they kick off against the San Antonio Spurs in the third week in October. I want you guys to be the GM for me down in the comment section. What is one move you would make before the season if you were Nico Harrison? Let me know down there in the comments, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button at youtube.com/MavsTV. And one more time, give me a follow on Twitter at Jeff_Coop27, as we're always bringing you the latest Mavericks updates.